This is, as this is your inaugural speech, I'd like to take the opportunity to congratulate you on your election. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Cahirlock, first, could I just thank the people of Dublin West for returning myself to the Dáil to represent them, and particularly the activists in the Anti-Austerity Alliance and the Socialist Party who worked so hard to have a representative here to bring some of the key concerns facing working people, ordinary people in Dublin West. So that's why today I've chosen to speak on this bill. There's many aspects to the bill, but I'd like to particularly focus on section 22, which provides that the agency, in consultation with relevant ministers, can develop proposals for investment to support economic activity and employment in energy, water, telecommunications, forestry and any other sector specified by the order. I fully support the principle of state investment in infrastructure and to create jobs. And in fact, it's ironic because it runs counter to the neoliberal philosophy that's been a mania of this government, of the previous government and of the EU establishment over the last number of years, where privatisation and looking to the private sector to resolve all problems has been the creed. I think the failure of this is seen in 25 million who are unemployed throughout Europe, and it has to be said that the government is moving very late to strategically invest. This is a tardy and an insufficient measure in the face of what has been mass unemployment and mass emigration from this country in the last number of years. We're grateful in the Socialist Party to the officials in the Department of Finance for a briefing on the bill given to my colleague Joe Higgins TD. The core of the bill is that 6.9 billion in assets from the National Pension Reserve Fund will be given to a new body under the auspices of the National Treasury Management Agency, becoming the Ireland Strategic Investment Fund. 2.4 billion is already committed elsewhere, leaving 4.5 billion net to be invested. Now, 4.5 billion against the thousands who've emigrated from this country, against the thousands who are unemployed, is actually insufficient. Let's put it in perspective. This year and every year, 8 billion in interest will be paid by the state on our national debt, much of that due to the bank bailout, paid for dearly by the Irish people. 5 years ago, the National Pension Reserve Fund had 20.7 billion in assets. It was put into the banks, and in 2013 it was worth 13.3 billion. So over 7.5 billion was lost because of the chaos of the finance system, of capitalism, if you like, to the Irish people. So that puts in context the amount of money that's been spoken of in this bill. But the thing that I wish to draw most attention to is the glaring omission that there's no specific reference in the bill to what is the most important strategic need in this country at the moment, what's the most important social need, which is housing. 1 billion, it's estimated, could build 8,000 to 10,000 houses, conservatively. So 40,000 houses potentially could be built if the money that's been spoken of in this bill was used for housing. That may sound fanciful, but it's not. In 1975, over 8,000 local authority houses were built in that 1 year, to say nothing of what was built by the private sector. During the Celtic Tiger boom, up to 80,000 houses a year were being built. So the idea that the housing crisis couldn't be resolved quite quickly within a period of, say, 3 years is not fanciful at all if the political will was there. I challenge the Minister, is this going to happen? Is any of this fund going to be used for housing? And does he accept that that is actually what could happen with this bill? And I'd be awaiting a reply. But so too will the thousands of people who are stuck on housing waiting lists in this country, suffering from successive government neglect, not something that's happened just under this regime, but under the previous as well. I have a mother who has contacted our office yesterday with an autistic son who's now homeless. Through the kind if you like, kindness of charity, she's been put up for a night in a hotel. But so many of these cases are the order of the day, Minister. A man who's sleeping in his van that he used to use for work, that's what people have been reduced to by the lack of housing, by the rack renting and rents, and by the government inaction over successive years, whereby all public social housing was devoted instead to the private sector. We believe housing can be facilitated in this bill. And would the Minister not agree that it's a glaring omission, given the countless stories that have come up in the last weeks alone? And if it's not an omission that's going to be corrected, would the Minister not agree that it's another example of the government's absolute removal from reality, the removal from reality that saw you punished so severely in the elections over the weekend? We have been approached, myself and Deputy Higgins, by countless people in Dublin 15, in Dublin West, who are suffering because of the housing crisis, and they're now going to be taking action. And I would caution the government that there will be social unrest and activity over housing if there isn't action taken by this regime. Many people have now established housing action groups, which are becoming more and more seen as being necessary by people on the housing waiting list. So I await the Minister's reply with eagerness to hear that housing will indeed be included in this bill.